3 years later, they fired their Super Bowl winning head coach. They traded the highest paid QB in franchise history. And they traded down in the 2021 NFL Draft. What does it all mean now? Find out during the draft from the premier Philadelphia Eagles reporter, Derek Gunn. Watch, listen to Draft Takes with Derek Gunn across the JAKIB Media Network, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
It is a big deal. Give me the list of 165-pound receivers that are in the Hall of Fame.
How did he perform in the SEC, the best college football?
What does that have to do with the NFL? The NFL's better than the SEC.
Where did the NFLs get their players from? Collegiate level? And it's all about the selections, Johnny Mac. It's all about the big board. When the Eagles had their media availability last week, they talked about how they're collaborating on the board. The board is all important, that the scouting staff was working so well with the coaching staff to put their board together. I think I've answered this before or since they had that media thing. How much of that are you buying that they could hold hands and sing Kumbaya? And this is going to be a true year where the board is the king?
Not much. I mean, you have to see it, and we're coming off a couple years where there have been at least a couple of well-reported, well-chronicled incidents, which, by the way, Howie Roseman did not deny, where maybe the picks weren't true to the Eagles board, and that's where you get in trouble, obviously. And we'll see. I mean, there's still plenty of time for Jalen Reagor and Jalen Hurts to turn into really good players. So it's not a death sentence by any means, but it does hurt the organization. I think we've had a number of guests over the last couple of weeks that said, you know, you could take the air out of a building pretty quickly if you got scouts who've been working on this board for 7 months and everybody agrees to it throughout that collaborative process, Jody. And then all of a sudden, you get to draft day and you take somebody else. That's very strange behavior, to be quite honest. I don't know any other way to describe it, and that's sort of how the Eagles have been operating. Hopefully that changes, because I think consistency leads you to having a better opportunity to get decisions right.
And the consistency is one of the things that Johnny and I have been debating on over the 3 weeks of Birds 365 about, will the Eagles stay consistent to their draft history, or will they be more a team that looks at the roster and says, well, this is where we need upgrading most, and this is where we have holes, and this is the need we're going to fill, or will they continue to stay inside in the trenches, follow a philosophy that Andy Reid brought to the team with him years ago and still seems pretty pervasive for the Eagles? We'll see how that shakes out. But the board will dictate it, or it should. Most teams will tell you before a draft ever starts, they painstakingly go through the process of putting these players in their specific order, and then they hold hard to those ratings, to those rankings, and draft accordingly. So I thought you and I would have some fun today, because we've talked about what we would do if we were in the Eagles' position. If this happens in front of them, if this trade is made, how will this affect them? Will the Eagles actually trade themselves, move up, move back? I have one perspective individual that I want to ask you about that the Eagles could see fall a little bit further than expected, and do they get aggressive and move up and make a deal for him? But we'll get to that in a second. First thing first, I asked you last night, do me a favor. Put together an Eagles big board for me. Not 150, 175 players, as we keep hearing. That's all they need for all 6 rounds.
I got 650 for you.
Do you have 650? I'll tell you how many I have. 13. All I'm going to ask you to do is rattle off your top 13, since the Eagles do have the 12th pick. If we can come up with 11 names that could, may, probably will be gone, we'll know who's left on the board and try as best we can to figure out who the Eagles are going to take at number 12. So here's how I want to do this. You go through your top 5. I'll go through my top 5. You go through your next 5, I'll go through my next 5, and then we'll cap it off with our last guy apiece, and we'll see who's left on the board for each of us to take. How do you order the top 5 ranked, rated, qualified players in the draft for you?
Well, number 1 is pretty obvious, and that's Trevor Lawrence, I think. He's basically been throughout, no matter what personnel evaluator you've talked to in this league, they're going to put pretty much Trevor Lawrence at number 1. So the board really starts for me at number 2. I got 3 players in the mix, but I went with Kyle Pitts because I think he's so unique. People have called him a unicorn at the tight end position. He's really not a tight end. He's more of a big flex receiver in the Travis Kelce mode. I have him at number 2. I have Penei Sewell at number 3, the big left tackle from Oregon. I think he's going to be a 10-year starter in this league. Then I have Jamar Chase at number 4, the wide receiver from LSU, and Zach Wilson, your guy, your soon-to-be guy, the second quarterback on the board, soon-to-be New York Jet. I have him at number 5.
See, this is why we have fun with this exercise. This is why you need to make up your own big board before Thursday night, because chances are it's not going to be the same as everybody else's, just as mine and John are not the same. Out of the 5, you and I have 2 players in the exact same spot. We both have Trevor Lawrence, number 1. That might be one that goes across the board. Well, nothing's ever 100%. So on 98% of the draft boards, Trevor Lawrence will be number 1. I have Justin Fields, number 2. You know how much I appreciate the stud quarterback. I think he is actually closer to Trevor Lawrence than the drop-off between Fields as the number 2 quarterback to whoever you're going to rank number 3, and we'll get to who I rank number 3, even though no other quarterback comes into my top 5. So I've got Justin Fields at number 2. At number 3, I've got Penei Sewell, same as you. I think he's a left tackle that's going to be going to Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl and could eventually someday be an NFL Hall of Famer. So you and I both have Penei Sewell at number 3. I've got Devonta Smith at number 4. Smith and Chase, to me, are 4 and 4A, but you can't do that on a draft board. There are no A's. You hope you're making a pick after it's over and done with, but it's 4, then it's 5, then it's 6, then it's 7. You have to put them in an order. So if I was forced to, I put Smith 4, and I put Jamar Chase number 5. So we have similar players, a little bit different positioning, but those are your top 4 and my top 5. Give me 6 through 10 for John McMullen.
All right. I'm going to go the other wide receiver from Alabama at number 6, and that's Waddle. So he'll be my number 6. Number 7, I'm going to go quarterbacks back to back here, and I'm going to surprise you a little bit, Jody. This is not an insult at Justin Fields, but the more people I've talked to about Trey Lance, his upside is just astronomical, according to league executives. A little bit of a boomer bust, but I just think talent alone, I'm going to put Lance at 7. I'm going to put Fields at 8. I'm finally going to go defense at number 9. Patrick Surtain, the cornerback from Alabama. This is very Alabama heavy. So obviously Xander Krause is going to be very excited by this. And then number 10, I'm going to go Northwestern offensive lineman, Rashawn Slater.
All right, my next 5 are some matches to yours, some not. I've got Kyle Pitts, who I think you had number 2 overall.
Yes.
I had him down at 6, which seems like a diss. I really don't mean it to be. I just had 5 players I thought I had to put higher than him.
By the way, real quick, Jody, I think people will say that's a diss. How could it be a diss to put somebody as the 6th best player?
Well, if you believe that they are the 1st or 2nd best player in the draft, and you had him at number 2, if you got him at 6, yeah, it is a little bit.
All these players are good, is my point.
Very true. If I need to apologize, so apologize. At number 7, I've got Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is going to be a very good quarterback. If he goes number 3 to San Francisco, some people will roll their eyes and say this is just Shanahan drafting a system quarterback. They're not actually judging the talent. I don't agree with that. I think Mac Jones got a ton of talent. And for those who make the argument, you got to be an athletic quarterback, Mac Jones is a statue. Well, that statue named Brady just won his 7th Super Bowl. So if you tell me you can't win with a non-mobile quarterback in the National Football League, you're either kidding yourself or you're not paying close enough attention. Mac Jones is going to win in this league, mark my words. I have him rated above the quarterback that you had in the top 5, Zach Wilson. And I've got Wilson at number 9. Between Jones at 7 and Wilson at 9, I've got Patrick Surtain. You had him in your top 10. I've got him at number 8. That's bad news for the Eagle fans that want to see Patrick Surtain get down to 12 where the Eagles can get their hands on him. Wilson at 9 for me, and Michael Parsons, I'm putting in at number 10. Some people have dropped him down their board a little bit. There are some character questions with Parsons. He did not play this year. He was an opt-out guy, so we didn't get a chance to evaluate him. But what he did the previous season and the show that he put on at his pro day tells me he is every bit the talent that had him on most people during the offseason, starting this year and going through this year in people's top 5 talented players. I've got him coming in at number 10, so I probably have him dropping a little bit too from once he was, but at least I don't have him dropping out of the top 10. I have him at number 10. All right, Johnny Mac, give me 2 more. Give me your 11th and 12th guy, assuming number 12 could very well be a Philadelphia Eagle choice.
Well, it's not how I did it, so I don't think the Eagles are taking him at number 12. This is just my big board, and this is who I think are the 12 best players.
But see, your draft. Big board is going to be so good. We know that the 11 that you have 1 to 11 will all be gone. So by process of elimination, it's going to be the Eagles number 12.
How we might be listening, and fans will be very upset if he is listening. So, which I've already been through with this particular player. But number 11 is going to surprise some people as well, because I love this kid. I think he's the future of defensive football in the NFL. And that's I'm going to screw up his name, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the hybrid player from Notre Dame. Everybody in this league I talk to talks about positionless players on the back 7 in the NFL. That's the way the evolution of football is going. I have never seen anyone better prepared coming into this league to move all over the place. I mean, all over the place on the back 7 of a defense. That's why I love him so much. Number 12, the other thing I like when I talk to personnel evaluators is when they say the word clean and when they say the word safe. And I brought this up with you before with Zach Martin. I heard it with Zach Martin. I'm hearing the same things with Elijah Barrett-Tucker, the offensive lineman. And I'm not going to call him an offensive tackle. I'm not going to call him an offensive guard because he can play 4 of the 5 positions if you need him to. He's my number 12.
I like your list. I like your line of reasoning on the last 2, except for one thing. And excuse me, because I'm having a brain fart. You're going to help me out here, Mr. Football. Positionless football players in the back 7 in the National Football League, the way things are trending. Not yet for me, and not yet through proof on the field, and specifically the draft. Who was the defensive player from Clemson?
Isaiah Simmons,
who was supposed to be much like your kid from Notre Dame, positionless player. Can rush the pass rusher, standing up on the outside of the line, can eat up all tackles in the middle of the field, could cover tight ends and backs coming out of the backfield. He was a guy who improved over the second half last year for Arizona. But truth be told, he contributed next to nothing for the first 8 games of the season.
No, I agree.
So it took them a while to figure out how to use a positionless player. And because he did next to nothing in the first half, you could reasonably say, maybe optimistically say, he was improved in the second half. When you look at the big body of work for a guy who was drafted as high as he was in the first round, the numbers don't jump off the board for what he contributed last year. So I'm not sure we're to the level yet that you're talking about, that the NFL is becoming a positionless league. It's going to take some time for that to happen. Maybe the kid from Notre Dame helps him become that, but I'm not sure that we're there just yet in the NFL.
No, I agree. I think the better Isaiah Simmons was just an athlete. I mean, that's why he was picked so high. He's much bigger than JOK. He's just test out of the board, out of the world on everything, but he was very raw. The difference with this kid, I think he's ready to play right now at all these different positions. He could play slot cornerback for you. He could play strong safety. He's obviously a linebacker. I look more towards what Malcolm Jenkins did here, moving all over the defense. But this kid's, whatever he is, 21, 22. It's going to it takes all young players. But I think he's far more ready to go, even though Simmons was a higher touted prospect. Because Simmons, it was all about the measurables. It was all about the physical ability, which is out of this world. This kid, he's got great physical ability. Maybe not, he's certainly not as big as Simmons, weighs about 215, 220 pounds, but he can play already. He's not raw. So that's why I think it's a little bit different.
Right. But was anybody saying Simmons was raw last year when the Cardinals picked him as high as they did?
I think some people were. But, the Cardinals, look, they expect anytime you pick somebody that high in the draft, you expect them to contribute right away. And you're right, Jody. Second half of the season, you started to go, oh, okay, I get it.
He made some plays for him because he made almost no plays in the first half of the season. So there was only one direction to go, but up. All right, one last question for you. We're going to punch up Rick Saratella from NFL Draft Bible shortly. Am I correct here in assuming that you did not have Devonta Smith in your top 12?
Number 13. Number 13.
I apologize because I thought I may have underrated Mr. Pitts at number 6, because some people have him, as you do, ranked 2 or 3. I got him down at number 6. Oh, I think you'll be apologizing to Devonta Smith for years to come.
No,
when he is making Pro Bowl.
You're crazy with this nonsense. You got this kid going. You got this kid. They're making the bus for him. He's already being Canton, according to you.
Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl.
Deshaun Jackson is his basically ceiling as a player. Deshaun Jackson is one of the greatest deep threats in the history of the NFL. Great player. That worked out. If the Eagles got that type of player for that long before, people are stained by the last few years of Deshaun Jackson's career, that would be great. Still not going to the Hall of Fame, but I think he's still not going to be a top tier receiver. There are some limitations, Jody. When you weigh 166 pounds in this league, there are some limitations. You're not going to be Julio Jones. You're not going to be Calvin Johnson. You're not going to be Randy Moss. You're just not physically capable of being that type of player. I'm not going to apologize for that. I guarantee it.
When he rewrites the way things are supposed to be in the National Football League, you and I hopefully still doing Birds 365, I will tell you, I was not a slave to history like you were, Johnny Mac. That some people just...
Or those who failed to learn from history.
If he is a constantly injured guy because he's just so...
I don't think he's going to be necessarily constantly injured, but I do think there are some limitations when you're that... I mean, if you go against... You think about great corners in their prime. Richard Sherman, big physical corner. Patrick Peterson, big physical corner.
Which, by the way, how much time do either of those guys have left in their pro career?
I said in their prime.
Oh, okay. Who is Devonta Smith going to be going up against? These great shutdown corners that are going to be able to marginalize him and on his NFL
Well, look
team
at the corners in this draft. Look at the corners in this draft. Look at the size. Look at the length. Look at the physicality. I mean, if they get their hands on him at the line of scrimmage.
Who are the corners in this draft?
You got Patrick Surtain. You got Caleb Farley.
He went up against him every single day in practice this year. C.J. Horn went up against him, and
We'll ask Rick. There's some
quite
great
shut him
SEC corners. One of the reasons that the two Georgia kids are potentially going to go late in the first round. Look, he's played the best competition in college football. But, maybe it is because you're a Jets guy, because Joe Douglas, he got into this. Look, what was your production at the college level? Which is great. It's better than failing at the college level. But this is about projecting, not looking back, projecting.
Sometimes projection are just as easy as looking up the stats, that if you did it on the college level in a conference like the SEC, there's probably no reason why you can't do it on the National Football League level either.
Once Tim Tebow going in the Hall of Fame, that's the greatest college football player of all time in the SEC.
But that you could tell that there are some things. What can you see? Not physically related, not because of his size. What hole did you see? What inability did Devonta Smith show you on the collegiate level?
None.
Oh, I can. Do you want me to give you the list of the inability Tim Tebow had when he was quarterback in Florida? They were sticking out like sore thumbs.
You are just passing over the physicality part of it in the NFL like it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. Give me the list of 165-pound receivers that are in the Hall of Fame.
How did he perform in the SEC, the best college football?
What does that have to do with the NFL? The NFL's better than the SEC.
Where did the NFLs get their players from? Collegiate level? When they graduate and they get on draft day, do they all become physical beasts that a guy can't deal with? And Devonta Smith has got no chance to ever get any bigger or any stronger. But all these cornerbacks who are drafted from the college level go into the pros. Somehow they magically become these physical individuals.
They're already at that
thin wide receivers can't play against. I don't buy it.
That's fine, but and we'll bring Rick on. Rick will tell you. The third or fourth cornerback on the college level ain't going to the NFL. Ain't going. Even in Alabama, even at Florida, even at Texas A&M, even at Auburn, name it. These are the best players from everywhere. So as good as the SEC is, a fourth cornerback, you get to a fourth cornerback on the college level is going to be a pretty poor football player when they're matched up against top 10 level picks. In the NFL, you're not getting that. Everybody can play. Everybody.
And you can say the same thing about the second or third safety who had to try and cover Kyle Pitts this year. But you take Kyle Pitts with the number 2 pick in the draft, and you wouldn't make the same argument that, well, he's going to actually have to play real safeties in the NFL where he played against these schmucks on the collegiate level.
How is that a bad argument? That's why evaluation is so difficult, because you do get hyped up on overblown statistics at the college level because it doesn't mean anything when you step onto an NFL field. So that's why, you have busts everywhere in the NFL draft, from the top 5 to everywhere throughout the process. It's basically a 50-50 hit, even on the first round. Even personnel people who've been doing this for years can't guarantee you everything. So, I mean, to say and look at a 166-pound kid, and by the way, I hope he's successful, but to tell me he's going to be Calvin Johnson or Julio Jones or Randy Moss, I think is an impossibility because of the physical aspect of his frame. He's just not capable of being that type of player. Just not capable.
When he puts up comparable numbers, then he caught 100 balls this year without breaking.
He's going to put up comparable numbers to 3 of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Is this what you're telling me on April 27th of 2021? You're going to tell me Devonta Smith is going to be Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, or Julio Jones?
He could be Julio Jones, yes. Calvin Johnson, I don't know about. You're right. He's going to the Hall of Fame. And I know that Randy Moss is there.
How about Jerry Rice? Is he better than Jerry Rice?
No, he's not. There's no football player's ever been better than Jerry Rice.
And by the way, where did Jerry Rice play? In the SEC?
No, he did not. But, oh, by the way, what did Jerry Rice weigh when he came out of college? It wasn't 210. I can guarantee you that. Jerry Rice wasn't all that big, and he got bigger.
Well, Jerry's issue, Jerry was very physical as a receiver. His issue was he couldn't run his 40 time, supposedly, but he could run on the football field.
And that's the same thing with Devonta Smith. All right, we're not going to, you dissed him, you put him down at number 13. That's fine. I'm going to defend my guy.
By the way, it's not an insult. 13 is very good. 13 is very good.
Yeah, it's an insult because he's a top 5 talent, but that's okay. You and I aren't going to agree on this. We'll get Rick Saratello to chime in on it. I talked to Ricky enough. I know that he doesn't have Devonta Smith as graded as high as I do, probably closer to what you do, but somewhere in the middle will be my guess. Rick Saratello of NFL Draft Bible joins us next.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.